Hello everyone and welcome to Spilling the Tea, brought to you by Atollo. I'm your host Saskia, and these podcast episodes will be exploring the world of hospitality through the eyes of Gen Z. What are the questions we're trying to answer? What does the future of hospitality think, want and believe? So without further ado, it's time to listen to them. Today I am joined by two lovely individuals from Sonder Group in London. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mackena. I've been at Sonder for nearly 6 years now. I'm 25 years old and I'm currently a hospitality supervisor, but doing more project management work with Ylenia. She's actually my manager, which we love. I joined Sonder when I was 19. My brother was working for them in New York. I'm from America, West Coast. But my brother was in New York, called me up one day and said, hey, you should try out. We're starting in London. So I did, and I got a hospitality agent role, which is a field agent, kind of bottom of the barrel. And 6 years, I've worked my way up. And last year and a half ago, I got supervisor role and then was transferred to Ylenia, and now kind of doing project management role right now in London.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
My name is Ylenia. I'm the Senior Operations Manager for the UK for Sonder as well, and I've been with the company a little less than Mackena. Just joined last October after 4 years with Melia and many, many years in the hospitality industry, mostly in the UK actually, although I'm originally from Barcelona.
Okay, amazing. Mackena, just kick off the conversation. Why are you working in hospitality?
It's a good question. Well, I joined hospitality when I was 18, when I first moved to this country. It was for the flexibility initially as a student. I started as a server at a hospitality agency, and it was a hard start, I'll admit. You got 1 day of training, and then you were just thrown on shift. And depending on the shift manager, you weren't allowed to have water breaks. You weren't allowed to sit down. You couldn't touch your phone. They would frequently yell at you. It was really hard.
Wow.
They were really cruel to us, and there was a lot of teenagers, really. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me in that agency was we were bringing out dishes to the guests, because we would do weddings and charity events all around London. And the plates were so hot, they were burning our fingertips. So they gave us these little paper napkins, and it turned the napkins black. It actually charred them. And I said, I'm not dealing with this. It's basically abusive. So I left after 2 months. And then I joined Sonder, and it was a complete 180. It was a totally different vibe. They were nice to us. They didn't yell at us. I would skip meals sometimes just to work because I wanted to prove myself. And my manager sat me down and he said, you need to not do that. Please, you'll burn out. And I couldn't believe how different it was. So it really changed my perspective on the industry, which was fantastic. But I joined for the flexibility, but I stayed for the people.
I was going to say, what on earth made you stay after those initial 2 months?
Well, it was Sonder. It was the people at Sonder.
Yeah. Well done for giving it another go after such a horrendous experience. And Sonder must have really done something to keep you in the industry.
Yeah, they were polite. I think it was the fact that, we had our GM, he would sit with us hospitality agents and have a drink with us after work. And it was so different. You could have a water break. You were allowed to sit down. It was just completely different to what I was used to.
Sounds pretty basic.
Yeah, they treated us like human beings, which was a nice change.
Yeah, and out of interest, was that first agency job your first role ever?
It
your first job?
Yeah, yes, it was.
Okay, so a pretty nasty introduction to the working world.
I could not believe it. So 2 months, I was like, I'm done. I'm not putting up with that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And Ylenia, how did you start in the industry, and was it similar experience to Mackena?
Maybe not as dramatic, but I finished school and I was a little bit lost on what to do. I've always loved traveling and architecture, and I used to read these traveling magazines when I was little, and I was always dreaming about, just going to all these exotic places. So couldn't make it into journalism school and decided then to study hotel management, which, I saw it a little bit as an opportunity to actually be able to work and travel. Finished school and then just worked in hotels since then in Spain, moved to the US for a bit, traveled, worked in the islands as well, in the Balearic Islands, in Ibiza, etc., and then ended up in London. But I've worked most of my life in hotels, really. Started in F&B, moved to reception, then moved to housekeeping, and moved to F&B again, and then moved into operations. So I've done a lot of the departments, except for the kitchen and maintenance, which are still on my to-do list. But yes, worked for over 20 years now in the hospitality industry.
Wow. And do you think when you started in the industry, and you were obviously, how old were you when you started?
About 25.
And did you find it a difficult industry to start in at that age? Do you think it's changed for young people coming into the industry now?
No, I didn't. I have to say that I didn't find it that difficult. Working in F&B, perhaps the shifts were a little longer as well. But for me at that time, it was a job. I would come in, do my shift, and go. I was really focused on where I was, on exploring the island or the country where I was. So I think I was a little bit disconnected, perhaps, from work. I didn't see it yet as a career, even if I had studied hotel management. I think that perhaps I was lucky as well. I think that the challenge for me has maybe increased as I've grown in hospitality, and I've had roles of more responsibility when I've moved from having to do things to actually manage teams and lead. That's when I've found, a little bit more the difficulty. But I don't remember the beginnings as a struggle. I think that otherwise I would have probably moved away as well. And I understand how anyone that has this experience would not want to stay in the hospitality. And I know I've heard of other, similar experiences, but I think it probably depends on who your employer is and what your job role is.
Yeah, and can you tell us just a little bit more about Sonder?
Yes, so Sonder is a relatively new company. Was founded by Francis Davidson when he was 19. He was renting apartments to university students. It grew from there into a relatively large company. It moved from being a tech company into a hospitality tech-powered company. With the mission to revolutionize hospitality with the use of technology and being design focused, just really focusing on a new experience for a new generation as well. Mostly at the beginning, we had apartments, short stays, long stays, very big in the US, and then grew into Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we've got properties now in Spain, Dubai, the UK, with Scotland, Edinburgh, Mexico as well. Am I forgetting any countries?
France, Amsterdam,
yes, Amsterdam,
Rome,
true.
all over Italy.
Yeah, Italy, etc. So Sonder became a public company about a year and a half ago now, and we are in a process of growing and evolving. So it's still a hospitality company, but with a difference. I think it's something very different from the traditional hotel.
And that is because of the way that you can book the hotel, or?
Yes, of course. I mean, we use the technology to add into the experience. So if you want, you can make your bookings, do your check-in online, verify your identity, get into the property, get into your unit, check out and go without seeing anyone in person, mostly without having to queue at the reception, without having to add all the admin that perhaps traditional hotels have. Of course, we're there as well, so we've got teams on the ground to help the guests, but a lot of the service is provided through the Sonder app, where you can find a lot of information about your unit, everything that you need to know really to use the appliances, what to find in the neighborhood, what's up, are there any events happening, and if you need anything extra towels or something's happened and you need to speak to someone, the team is there 24 hours. So we provide the hotel experience and the service powered through technology. We also have buildings that are in the best locations, focused on design, so we're very design conscious, but because of our model, our prices are a little lower than traditional hotels. So you can have an amazing stay in a fantastic building that it's beautifully designed, have, all the commodities, but pay a fraction of the price because of how the company is structured.
And that's because you're reducing labor costs through the use of the app?
Exactly, yes. We as well, for example, we don't clean the rooms or the apartments every day from an efficiency point of view, from a sustainability point of view as well. You can opt to have your apartment or your room cleaned if you want, of course, but in principle, we don't do it. We're there to support with anything that might happen, but you have everything that you need as well for your stay. So that, allows us to pass on the savings onto guests. Yes, but in a way where it's not a cost-saving exercise because we still provide you with the same experience. We're just not there in the building. Although a lot of our buildings are serviced at the moment, and we've got people at the reception. However, we don't have the traditional model where you actually need to check in and need to check out. There's a lot of things that you can bypass.
I'm fascinated by this concept because it's sort of a very different way of doing hospitality. Do you find that when guests come, they simply just use the app, or they want that human contact?
I think that it's a lot of our guests that know Sonder use the Sonder app.
Yeah.
They know that it's not about not having the contact because we're there and we make them feel that we are available for them. Our response time to any request is very fast.
Okay.
Whether you want extra towels or something's happened in your room and you need support. So I feel the guests feel that we're there as well. But it's very useful, and a lot of guests are really great fans of being able to just check in yourself and walk into the property and to the unit, and you don't have to actually queue and wait and do the paperwork and have the chat. You can come and chat if you want. We're there for anything that you need, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So I think it's having this flexibility that our guests love. And on the other hand as well, you get these fantastic buildings in these amazing locations. Our design team is great. So we've got really amazing views in some of our buildings.
I just find it fascinating because it's just such a different way of doing hospitality. But do you find that your guests are younger or older? Who are the people that are interested in Sonder?
So Sonder is in principle designed for a new wave or a new generation of travelers that are growing in volume and that are favoring a different way of experiencing and living life. No, there are a lot of the millennials and Generation Z are avid travelers and they're looking for this experience. So Sonder has these guests in mind. As I said, we are there. If someone has difficulty checking in, we can check you in the property. If someone wants to see one of our team members in person, we can be there as well. But in principle, Sonder, it's designed for the new generation of travelers.
Very interesting. And Mackena, do you, as a young person yourself, do you think that is a really appealing way to travel and an appealing style of hospitality?
For sure, yeah. People my age, we don't really want to stand at the desk and talk. We'd rather just get in and go. I mean, we're the age of phone users. Airbnb, they were the first ones to do it. And instead of keys, struggling with the lockbox outside the house at 4 a.m., you've got the code and your phone can unlock it. It's super easy. So people like me, I mean, as bad as it sounds, I don't really want to stand and talk. I'd rather just go in and go to bed and start my vacation. So yeah, definitely.
Do you find that Sonder is an appealing concept to you personally, which makes you want to work there? Does it influence your decision to work at Sonder?
Definitely, yeah. We've done some really great stuff all across the board. We're a global company now, and we started from so small. I think the first room Francis actually rented out was his dorm room initially, and that's where it started, that whole really small concept that's grown really quite large. And it's an interesting thing these days. I know there's a lot of kind of negativity, especially around Airbnb and these kind of things, but we've moved away from kind of multifamily properties, apartments, moving more towards hotel. So it's, in my mind, kind of less gentrification. It's more about providing more affordable accommodation for younger people to see the world, which I think is important. It's also safe accommodation, which as a woman is very important to me. We rate very highly on the safety radar. We do a lot of safety analysis of our buildings and the areas that they're in. And, you know, if a building doesn't meet the standards, then we drop it after a time. So, you know, I think it is really important for young travelers to have this space and to know a company that you can trust, and to have it on a global scale is really, really nice. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
How long do you think you'll work in hospitality, and do you see career path for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Sonder's proven to me that there is a career path available. I mean, I've worked up the chain these last 6 years. For me, it'll probably be more on the strategic side rather than the operations. I've done the operations, I've been there, done that, and now I can use my expertise in kind of implementing strategy for operations going forward. I think the best thing about hospitality is that you work with so many stakeholder groups. You've got maintenance, management, operations, sales, even real estate. Those are doors that are ready to be opened if you work hard and you have good contacts, a good network. For me, I've worked as a field agent, a dispatcher, a maintenance coordinator, a manager, and even a corporate sales rep. So I don't know many companies that would provide that many doors for someone like me when I was 19, but Sonder certainly has, and there is a career there. And, you know, now I'm working with Ylenia to implement new strategies in London based off things that I have worked through for 6 years. And I'm actually, it's my favorite fun fact, I am the longest running team member in operations in Sonder in Europe.
Wow.
So I've been through it longer than anyone on the continent. So
That's amazing. And when you started, when you were 19 at Sonder, did they, when you began, give you a clear progression plan, or was that something that's just happened naturally but wasn't sort of provided in a very structured way?
Back then, there were 6 people in the market when I joined, so we didn't even know where we were going. You know, it was like we were trying to get the bank accounts settled in the UK, and it was kind of all hands on deck. Everyone did everything. When I was in charge of the entire market by myself most nights, 2 till 10 p.m. I've dealt with evacuating people from a fire, you know, all sorts of situations that I'm sure many people my age hadn't dealt with. So there wasn't a progression plan. I kind of forced one into place. I was very determined to make one happen. So I think it's a piece of advice I'd give to anyone that was in my position. You need to be determined. They won't necessarily give it to you. And Ylenia has been very instrumental in getting a development plan in place for me, working towards project management in the next year. So I'd really say Ylenia has probably been the first one to give me structure in these last few years. But besides that, I kind of had to create it.
Yeah. And did you have anyone when you were that age that you could speak to, sort of like a mentor that could help guide you through?
Yes. Actually, my first manager, Tom Knight, he was the guy that got me into Sonder. He was my first manager. He was the operations manager. And again, that was one of 6 people. And he would, you know, take us out after work and would sit down and ask us about ourselves. And, you know, he wanted to meet my then boyfriend, who turned into my husband, to make sure he was a good guy for me. And, you know, he would teach me about things. He taught me how to politely, you know, deal with guests that are yelling in your face, that kind of thing. So absolutely. And I think I was just so lucky that I had Tom to lead me.
Yeah.
But now very lucky to have Ylenia.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at Otolo, so what we offer is mentoring. So that's our big thing. So we believe that if somebody young in the hospitality industry, to show them a career path or to show them that it's a brilliant career opportunity, really impacts people staying in the industry. So it's fascinating to hear that you also find that mentoring is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Especially when there aren't those set career paths in place when you first join and when you're younger. Just having a great mentor can really guide you and show you that themselves. Yeah. Oh, I need a break.
Well, that's fortunate, because Spilling the Tea is sponsored by Toast. Toast is an all-in-one point-of-sale platform built specifically for restaurants. That's right, it's built specifically for restaurants and means you can run your entire restaurant from one platform.
And did you also know that Toast customers have told us that you can integrate the front of house with the back of house and reduce ticket times by 40%?
40%?
I know. So a huge thank you to Toast for supporting both the UK and this podcast.
Back to work, Sass.
Ylenia, why do you think Sonder appeals to those coming into the industry from the Gen Z population? Is there anything that you do personally as a business to make yourself attractive to Gen Z?
I think that Sonder overall as a hospitality proposition is already attractive to the Gen Z. So I think that because Sonder is such a new proposition, that we are so clear with our mission of being hospitality disruptors. I think that's very appealing for the younger generation. I think that they find working through the many apps that we use easier. And although we are working to provide structure and build structure, now Sonder was a startup company until very recently, so we're still working our way through to finding really a structure that works well for all the markets. But I think that we've got enough so the team feels comfortable in what they're doing, but also we offer enough flexibility for the team to feel that they're not in a rigid environment, and we are quite informal. We, of course, there are managers in the market, but we're not. A hierarchy is not important for us. We are just here to support. So I think that this, overall, is an environment that I think appeals very much the younger generation.
Question for both of you. What do you think the biggest perk of working at Sonder is? Mackena, do you want to go first?
I have my answer. I have two answers. Obviously, our Sonder credits that we can use globally, which when you're a young traveler is an absolute banger.
Okay, tell me about Sonder credits.
You get $1,200 worth of credits to start with, and then they increment it. Every year you get like $1,200 more to spend, and it increases by $200, I think, every year. So I've got a lot, 6 years going.
Wow.
But you can spend them on any Sonder across the globe, and obviously just to spend them like cash, basically, and you get a free stay, which is fantastic.
Amazing. And do you think that really appeals to your generation? Because obviously
yes.
you just want to travel and explore.
Yes, we've had HAs that go to Barcelona for the weekend, and all they have to pay is the airfare and the food.
Wow.
And then they come back on Monday and they work another shift, and it's great, And we've had people put up their family when they come, get to splurge for mom and dad on their anniversary, that type of thing. It's a very good perk. But I think personally, I was thinking about it and I realized there is a perk of working in a kind of property management job, which is the DIY skills you get. So my family, I'm the DIY for my husband and I've fixed boilers, light bulbs, painting. I negotiate with the landlords. I've had 2 landlords try and withhold our the rent, the deposit.
Yeah.
And both times I was able to fight and argue and negotiate and get it all back. And that is something I learned 100% from Sonder. So
is that like a formal training at Sonder? DIY
no, you
training,
just pick it up.
Just pick it up.
You just pick it up while you're in the field, and then when you're, a dispatcher, you work with landlords every single day, and you start to learn how to speak to them, and you learn you got to be aggressive, and so it really teaches you life skills.
Amazing. Tell me, what's a dispatcher?
It's a kind of an old role that we used to have where you would basically run the market. You would hand out the tasks for the field agents, tell them where to go, what time, what to do.
And what are field agents?
The hospitality agents. So they're the ones in the field. They're the ones that deliver the towels, that do the in-person check-ins for VIPs, that kind of stuff. So dispatchers were in charge of the market, and they would be the liaison between the field agents and management. So if something goes wrong, you escalate it to dispatcher handles it with management.
Okay, this is a whole new world that I'm learning about here. So cool.
I think that our roles are not traditional. So we don't have receptionists. We've got hospitality agents. So although they work with the computer a little bit, their role is just to be in the buildings, make sure that the point of contact for the guests, as Mackena said, if they need to deliver towels, they'll do that. They might change a light bulb as well.
Do they get training for how to change a light bulb?
Yes. We ask them to do anything that they would do at home, which of course we understand it varies, from what, Mackena might do at home.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think I've, negotiated boilers, but...
But anything that is basic, like changing a light bulb or just checking why the electricity is not working.
I've had so many people on this podcast that obviously talk about hospitality, and I've never heard some of the language both of you using today about job roles. Just
definitely. And it's not
really
only
different.
Job roles. I tell you that for the first month that, when I started working with Sonder, I probably couldn't understand 50% of what, my colleagues were talking about.
Do you ever find there being any friction of people coming in from the industry who already work in the industry, say from a different company or a different hotel brand, that come into Sonder and struggle with that adjustment of how it's done differently?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think some hotels especially are very structured, very corporate in their layout, whereas we're not. And you have to have a very fluid mindset because it's not just hotels, it's multifamily apartments as well. And that is a different game. And you're also working with younger people. And that is different from some of the more traditional hotels, for sure.
When you say that you work with younger people, is a lot of your team very young at Sonder?
I'd say quite a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of our field agents, for sure.
And field agents, just remind me, are...
The HAs, yeah, my original role, yeah.
Okay.
So we used to go to job fairs at universities. That was something I'd push for when I became a manager, was go to universities, recruit kids that, they need that fluidity that I had talked about, like around their work. That's what I did. It's why I worked for so long with Sonder. It worked really well. It was pretty good pay for at that time as well. And it's in my mind, it was better than the server role that I had. It was so much better. So yeah, we have a lot of young people on our teams.
If you've got all these young people in your team, does that create a kind of culture within Sonder that's quite young? And does that impact the way that you run things?
I think it's the culture of the company that influences how we do things. And this culture is appealing to young people, which is why we have so many. We don't particularly look for young people. We believe in diversity, and we've got, together with a lot of young people in perhaps the entry roles, we also have a lot of much older people that perhaps have moved away from hospitality, from the traditional hospitality. They were looking for something else, or people that had not worked in hospitality before, and the title of hospitality agent appealed to them, and they've stayed with us. So we've got people of all different ages, but I don't think there's anything that we do particularly. It's just that our roles and our job descriptions and our company itself, it's very appealing for the younger generation.
Mackena, if you could give one bit of advice to your employer, who may or may not be sitting next to you, about what would keep you in their company, what would it be?
I bet Ylenia has an idea. For me, it'd be the perks. I am highly aware that we're in the middle of a recession and that companies can't meet every need of every employee. So they need to look at things that they can influence, which are things like perks. Ylenia knows very well I'm very protective of my work from home status. And it is what's kept me in this company long term, for sure. It doesn't cost any money, and I'm actually way more detail focused when I'm at home. So I would say, if companies can't necessarily do one thing, then they should look at what they can influence, which is the perks that they offer. So highlight that. It'll bring better people in, and it'll retain better people from leaving. So for me, I'm a case study. It's worked for me for 6 years.
And obviously working from home, like in hospitality, that's not naturally something that's doable for a lot of companies.
Definitely.
Is at Sonder, the way that you do things on apps, and because a lot of it's done in a very different way, does that lend itself to more people being able to work from home?
Yeah, it used to. We used to have a team. It was my original team. We called it the Go team, guest operations team. And we used to work from home because we were just running the market from a laptop, essentially. So you could do it anywhere.
Just to double check, so the market means...
London.
Okay, so so running all the sites in London.
Yes, we had at that point, I think 17 buildings that we were in charge of. Hotels, multifamily properties, the same. And we actually helped with the UK markets, Dublin, Glasgow, and Edinburgh as well.
Okay.
But I am fully aware. Hospitality, it has to be in the field. You have to be face-to-face. But people for management roles, what I have seen is management roles are actually some of the key players for keeping people in a company. If you have a bad manager, it can really make your life hell. I had a really terrible manager, and luckily she was, she left the company. But that if you have good managers, you'll have a good team. And to bring in good managers, you need to have perks that people want to have at a company, right? And if they don't have that perk, they're going to go to another company. And I think work from home, Sonder credits, like we said, those kind of things will bring in good people. So for managers, I think it is actually very important.
I think that Sonder is a company with very good perks, to be honest. And of course, Mackena has mentioned the star perks, which is the Sonder credits. We also have the quick trips, which means that you can keep your Sonder credits. And if a property is empty just the day before, you can book it complimentary, which is fantastic as well. So for people that have got flexibility and that they don't need to actually organize childcare, etc. They can just fly out, spend the night in Paris, and then come back the next day.
So cool. So if you're in London, for example, and there's a property free in London, the same city that you work in, you could just go and stay there for the night?
Yeah, yes, a lot of people do. Yes. A lot of people do.
We have a process, and we need to make sure that the booking is done following a process, a form, etc. There needs to be a control on that. And it needs to be, it's 36 hours before the check-in time. But if the property is free, people that love to travel, the Sonder credits and the quick trips, it's really a fantastic benefit. We've got others from medical insurance to career development and other bits and pieces, your pensions, and a little bit more your standard perks. But yes, I think those two are particularly popular.
In the years that you've grown in the business, have you noticed a shift in the expectation that younger people coming into the team have on you? And have you ever felt the need to change the way you do things due to the different needs and expectations of younger people coming in?
Yes, I think that obviously it's been a progression through the years. But when I started in the hospitality industry, it was just a different environment. The expectations from managers were that they were there and to provide direction and to do the rotas and make sure that we got paid. But I don't think that we expected necessarily to develop a very close relationship, or at least I didn't. But I'm talking to you about a number of years back. I think that as years have passed and the younger generation has joined the hospitality industry, I think the expectations are higher, I would say, and different in a way that, of course, they expect you to be there and make sure that all the admin and the rotas and everything it's done, and that you're there to support and give direction on the day-to-day of the business. But there is an element of mentorship and support and understanding that's there as well. So I think that the team expects that we will be much closer to them. They expect not to have this distance between the manager and the team. They expect us to be able to understand their personal circumstances and to be able to offer as much flexibility as possible. I think they expect us also to be able to offer a balance between a challenging day-to-day that will keep you engaged, but also making sure that we offer, a work-life balance. So it has changed. I think it's more, before perhaps was more about doing, and now it's more about leading the team. I think that managers currently need more soft skills and leadership skills to make sure that the team are happy. Definitely spending a lot more time listening to what they have to say. Feedback is a lot more important than what it was before. I don't remember, completing surveys many years ago and people asking me, what would I change in my company. I think that's something that started a few years later, and that it has evolved a lot. But I think the team's opinion is extremely important now. And as employers, we work hard to make sure that we listen and that we adapt as much as possible. Of course, we're still a business at the end of the day, and not everything is possible. But yeah, I think that the expectations have definitely changed.
Yeah, and Mackena, would you agree with that in the sense of, do you have a more of a holistic expectation from your employer? I know you mentioned earlier about having Tom as your mentor when you started, and him caring about, even your relationship and things like that. And is that holistic care something that you expect from your employer?
Absolutely. I put a lot on Sonder. I put a lot on poor Ylenia. If I'm upset, she's going to hear about it. I'm very outspoken in that way, though. But I've had 6 years in this industry to kind of speak up for myself. Because originally I wouldn't have. I put up with everything. But then, you get one caring manager and you realize, it's actually quite nice. And, Ylenia, we check up with each other, and she checks in on my life and how am I doing? How's my mental health? And what can she do to influence that and make me feel better? And I think it's important for companies to influence the controllable factors within their realm of possibilities. So, checking in if someone needs a wellness day. And that's actually something I really appreciate about our CEO, Francis. During COVID, he stopped accepting a paycheck to try and limit the number of people that would be let go during COVID. And he actually encouraged a lot of the top brass to do the same, which a lot of them did. And people started talking about, why can't we have wellness days? It's really depressing right now. People are really struggling. And he gave us 2 wellness days paid a year, which I've never heard of a company doing that, especially in hospitality. So absolutely. And that was the younger people coming on these all-hand calls, challenging our CEO, and him actually stepping up to the plate and responding. And I really have to respect him for that. And yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our managers, especially in London, but all across Europe and America, they sit down, they talk to people. They want to know about your life, not just about how you're working, what your metrics are. So yeah, I think our teams expect that more. And I really appreciate my manager, Ylenia, for doing that for me.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And there is a statistic actually that said that a study conducted last year showed that 46% of Gen Z say they are stressed or anxious all or most of the time. And so it's no surprise that is the wellness days. And I know some companies, I haven't heard of any in hospitality providing it, but will pay for free therapy. And is that something, that you think will be more of a requirement the more younger people that were coming into the workplace?
Yeah. I mean, life is hard enough as it is. It's hard to go to work every day. It's hard to go to work on Monday, that Monday feeling. And if companies can take that step, it will showcase that they're willing to make changes for the betterment of their employees, which will retain people longer term. And it certainly made me want to stay at Sonder to support Francis's dream, because he was willing to actually show up for us. I've never heard of a CEO doing that before. So yeah, he actually puts his money where his mouth is. I really respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Ylenia, how does the company celebrate success or big wins?
So we've got maybe more structured processes like what Mackena said, the all hands, where we've got a company all hands once a month and we share the big wins globally. We've got quarterly awards as well for the team members globally. And I think that we celebrate a lot of the wins through using Slack. Through a number of channels. No? So we've got channels with less people where perhaps there's a lot of the day-to-day wins that are celebrated, and then we've got London channels where we will then, anyone can post of something great that's happened, and we encourage very much for everyone actually to share those wins, so it's not coming from managers.
Absolutely. And Mackena, do you find that that's a really important thing for you?
Definitely.
The successes and sharing that?
Yeah. Well, as a manager, it helps you know who's kind of a star performer in the field if you're not necessarily there to see it day to day. We get a lot of reviews where guests will actually name people, which, if you're a guest listening to this, it really helps. It's a really wonderful thing to do. It shows that you actually remember them. They were such impactful employees that you remembered them. But also it helps for the team member involved to know that their hard work is actually being recognized by even the senior management. And we've had a couple where even Francis jumps on and says, oh, hey, that's really great. And it's like, oh my God, the CEO saw it,
Yeah.
What a great feeling. So yeah, it's very important. And I think we're pretty good for it. We have, I think, a monthly winner of kind of like HA of the month. So sometimes one or two from the UK, they get nominated by their peers, and we choose, a bit of a blurb, someone wrote something about that HA, why did they get this? Could be maintenance, could be a cleaner, it could be an HA. And yeah.
And what's it, HA?
Hospitality agent.
Hospitality
It's the field agent.
Yeah. Gosh, it's all very cool, the agents in the field, this language is it feels quite like sci-fi, doesn't it? We've had a lot of conversations on this podcast about hospitality not being seen by other young people as a career. Obviously, Ylenia, you've come from working in Spain, where I think probably hospitality is seen slightly differently to what it is in the UK. And Mackena, you've come over from America, but you started your hospitality career here in the UK. And what are your perspectives on how people perceive hospitality as a career, and have you had any experiences where, say, your friends or your parents have sort of not seen what you're doing as a career, or do they see it as a career?
I think for my friends, everyone that I know that's in hospitality says the same thing. They hate the schedule, but they love the people. It is a hard job. It's 24/7, 365, but it also provides an opportunity for people that may not have had the same opportunities, or like me and I guess Ylenia, that didn't know what you wanted to do after college. And, I admit at the time at college, I thought, this is just a college job, whatever. But then suddenly there was another opportunity, and I started getting promoted. And then you realize 3 years in, I'm starting to build a career here. And ultimately, I do think some people kind of look down on hospitality, but it's a job. And you know what? A lot of people benefit from it, and there is nothing shameful about it. It's hard work. I will always say the cleaners have the hardest job.
Absolutely.
And we often will make new GMs when they come in. We make them do a housekeeping shift so they get to see what it's like on the field. And yeah, I think ultimately it provides an in to an industry that has a lot of doors that can open for you. That's a very transferable skill, whether it's negotiating with landlords, whether it's maintenance, whether it's property management, whether it's team management. That's a transferable skill. And frankly, hospitality provides a lot of flexibility that maybe other industries wouldn't. So,
and do you think, a way of kind of trying to get this across to young people, like what do we need to do as an industry to promote the incredible skills that it provides? I mean, is it going to universities? Do you have any views on what the answer is?
I think hospitality needs to continue a little bit with the PR exercise that has started, a few years back, and it's not going to be a dramatic change from one day to another. I think that the hospitality industry perception is changing little by little. I think that there's a lot of very good initiatives already out there promoting the hospitality industry, from what you guys in Otolo are doing and offering mentorship, to going to universities, to just showing that the hospitality industry, it's not now what it was a few years back, that the industry itself has changed and that it offers a much better work-life balance, and that it offers a lot of possibilities for people that might have different skills. So some people love academics. They can go and study hotel management and have their masters, etc., and still come into the industry and have a great career. But if you're not academic, if you learn by doing, if you like being active and, are very switched on and of course love interaction with people, hospitality is a great career because you've got the opportunity to progress using your strengths. So it's an industry that provides an opportunity for people with very different strengths to actually grow. You can go into business analytics if you like numbers, and you can actually work in hospitality operations for many years and still progress and still have a varied work, etc. It offers a lot of variety. So I think that there's a lot that the hospitality industry offers. But I think that the perception has started to change already. And I think that as a lot of companies, not only, of course, Sonder, but there's a lot of companies out there that are putting a lot of hard work to make sure that their work environment is much better and that we bring and we become attractive to the younger generation. I think everyone's efforts eventually will pay off.
Absolutely. And I think even just from talking to companies on this podcast, offering things and hearing things like private medical insurance and pensions and, things that are actually quite normal in other companies, but in hospitality have notoriously not been there. The amount of pay that people in hospitality have and things like that starting to change. Soon that will filter out and people will see it in a different way as a career. And are there any brands at the moment that stand out to you, apart from Sonder, that you think they are killing it and they're really helping that fight to bring hospitality into a better light?
For me, I think Ennismore is doing a lot of great things, not only for the industry with their hotels and the brands and offering really cool accommodation experiences, but they're doing a lot of work as well to make sure that they become very attractive to the younger generation. But in addition to the big brands, there are a lot of smaller companies that are doing a lot to make sure that they offer a good employment to the younger generation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about Ennismore. Every time I think about, if someone's writing a job description, I would go to Ennismore for inspiration. So I think even the way they portray, their job roles and their culture, they're very good at putting that across online. To finish off our conversation, I've got a bit of a quick fire round. So what is the most used app on your phone?
Spotify.
Slack.
Oh, that's depressing. Okay, where do you get your news from?
BBC.
You can't say Slack.
No, I have to say that I try to avoid reading the news.
I do too. That's actually fair. I do too.
So we're even the BBC News app isn't getting much action.
No.
On either of
I don't even have the app. I just see the headlines.
I follow hospitality news to make sure that I stay up to date, and financial news. Everything else, I try and filter as much as possible.
Fair enough. It's not great at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, favourite social media channel?
TikTok.
Gosh, you're such a Gen Zer.
Instagram.
Favourite restaurant?
Kintan. It's a Japanese barbecue restaurant in Oxford Circus.
Oh, I've never heard of it. Love a new recommendation.
Yeah. Asakusa.
Oh.
So it's a Japanese as well. It's a very small restaurant just off Mornington Crescent. It's been open for maybe 20 years. It's not been renovated forever. It's run by Japanese, frequented by Japanese. You've got the best sushi in London. Make a booking in advance because otherwise you're not finding a table on the day.
Amazing.
But it's a great restaurant.
Okay, going out or staying in?
Staying in.
Both. I think staying in, but you need to go out now again.
You need to force yourself.
Yes.
Get off the sofa. Okay, early shift or late shift?
Early.
Early always.
Yeah, I'm an early girl too. Much rather an early morning than a late night.
Yes,
For sure.
definitely.
Amazing. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on today. It's
Thank
been
you.
absolutely fascinating. I imagine, like me, a lot of our listeners will rush off to like have a look at the website because also just to get our heads into this lingo, this new sci-fi lingo of hospitality, which I love. So fun. But thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having us.
If you want to attract, retain, or develop your team, check us out at myatolo.com.
That is www.myatolo.com.